So a few weeks ago, I measured the ring gaps and found that they're a little bit tight on one cylinder, and then I realised that this piston, which is a B, and I've got A cylinders, and at one point I used a couple of second-hand pistons on another engine, and I went through, I think I weighed all the pistons I had and sort of made two pairs, and that's why this piston is not from this cylinder. And it's a B piston, so a B cylinder is a little bit bigger, and if it was a B cylinder it should be big enough that the ring gap would probably be right on the minimum, but it's a bit tight in this one because I've got the ring file to do it. I might as well make it right. So this one is about 0.25, I think. The other one's 0.28. Possibly a 0.23. So we get the ring, just put it on the ring file there, push it together, push it against the pins, and these ones being so flexible, not really sure how it's going to work. Usually when the rings are much more stable, thicker ring, you sort of put it in there and it just works really nicely. I call that a 0.33, unless the spec is 0.3. 0.33 is just dandy. Two 5-ish. Put it in, push the ends together, and just very gently. The wheel's like a industrial diamond coated little thing. Okay, instead of 3.3 goes in. 3.5's tight. I'm going to leave it at that. If you have a thick ring like something like that, it's much easier. Although I didn't really take much off, and there's possibly no great need, I'll just give the ends of the rings a quick rub on the oil stone, just to break the edge of what you've just done. But I don't imagine with that much removal there's any great burr on there. But if you've got the gear, you might as well at least have a stab at doing it properly. That's how I usually approach it. Yep. And that's a ring gap set. Now I'm going to assemble the pistons, put them in the cylinders. So first all this stuff's been cleaned thoroughly previously, but before I put it together I usually just brake clean everything just to make sure it's clean. If you want to make sure if your cylinders are really, really clean, if you get a rag that's got a fair bit of white in it, put either brake clean on it or even some oil, and then just wipe your cylinder out. You'll see if there's a whole lot of dirt in there, because a rag will change colour, but that's fine. The cylinders have been flex honed, which is just the ball hone, which is one of them. And on Nicosil, or whatever product trademark name these are coated in, the Nicosil coating is really hard. And one of these flex hones, all it does is basically clean and scratch the surface a little bit. You aren't going to take any material out with that kind of hone. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about doing it. I just give them a zzzz, 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 until any pattern or any sort of staining, marking in there's gone. Sometimes you'll see scratches down the cylinders, which is pretty normal. I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. If it's got deep wear in it or there's material missing, you need to do something about it. But most cylinders with a flex hone will be fine. When I put the rings on, I'll start with the oil ring, which on these is this 3-piece thing, which you can't damage, or you'd need to try pretty hard to damage. Some of them use a cast iron oil ring, which is really easy to break. So if it's a cast iron oil ring, just be really, really wary of it and gentle of it. The join on this oil ring, I'll put around the side here, at the pin, and you can see there's the join just there. These things are a bit wacky to put together, but you just put them on basically and away you go. The scraper ring, put it in the groove, wind its way around, that should be in. There's the gap just there. The gap at the other side, was it the other side? Or the join? I think, hang on. I'll make sure I'm doing this in the right orientation now. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to put the join in the expander on this side of the pin, which means I'll put the join in this ring on this side of the pin. And just wind him around and on. Yep. Okay, so it's on the top side. So now we've got the join and expander here and the join in the top rail over here. And the bottom rail, I'll put the join in the same place over this side. So that way they're all 180 degrees apart. Right. Now the second ring is the one without anything on it, and the top ring has got a relief on the inside, which you can see here. So that's the top ring, that's the second ring. To put these on, I usually use some ring pliers just to be as gentle as possible, and then they flex and twist and it's really quite horrible sometimes. You've got to work out where you're going with it. Nope, we're in the anti-detonation groove. If there's a groove between the top ring and the second ring, it's usually what they call an anti-detonation groove. I'm not really sure how it works, but it's one of those things that sort of appeared on a lot of pistons sort of in the 90s, I guess. Became a bit of a fashion. Not really sure how it stops detonation, but that was the idea behind it. This second ring is really flexible. It's really hard to get to sit into its groove. There we go. So that's the second ring. It's got the writing on the top, K-top. And the top ring, again, any writing to the top. When it says top, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a top ring. It means it's the top of that particular ring. There we go, that was better done. So we've got the 3 rings on. And there's one wear spec I didn't check previously, and that is the gap between the ring itself and the groove. And it's given as 0.15 on the top ring and 0.1 on the others. So we'll see, this is a 0.15. And if we push the ring back into the groove, like so, there's no way that's going in. What's 6 in this one? 0.08. I steal feeler gauges out of my things and use them loose for doing valve clearances, so sometimes these things aren't complete. I can't even get the 0.08 in there. What have I got next? 0.06. No. I can't get it in on the second ring. I can get it in on the oil ring. 0.06. 0.08 goes in. 0.15 doesn't. So I think in terms of the up and down ring gap, these are fine. Yep, I'll call that fine. Now when I pull pistons off, if I pull the clip out, I always replace it. And usually I leave one in, but these pistons went out to get the valve reliefs deepened a bit, and so the piston machining guys pulled both of them out. So I'm going to put one of them back in, and usually when I put them in, I work from the right hand side or the belt side. So on these cylinders, this is the horizontal cylinder, this is the belt side, that's the exhaust valve relief there, so it'll go in like so, which means this is the left hand side or the non-drive side. So I'll put this one in, and I usually just push them around in a circle, but it depends how easily they're going to go in. And it's usually much easier doing it when the piston's sort of held in the engine, because then it can't move around too much on you. Or what you can do if you like is put this end in down the bottom and then use a screwdriver and just lever off the top to get it to go in. I might try that. Get a couple of different sizes of flat blade screwdrivers. Put the bottom of the clip in the groove and just lever in there. See if we can get it to go in. Doesn't really want to. We'll move it around a bit more. You can almost get it in by hand, but it just gets that little bit frustrating at the end, usually. There we go. And it's in. And now I put the piston into the cylinder. With terms of the ring gaps, I usually set the ring gaps up so that the oil ring gaps will be here, The second ring gap is on the other side over here, and the top ring gap over here. So they're all on the non-thrust surfaces, but they will move around. Setting them, some people say set them up to 120 degrees apart. I know I've seen some pistol instructions where they say to put the top ring gap to the highest side of the cylinder, so on a horizontal, which sits like that, it'll be up here. On a vertical, which is sort of tilted that way a little bit, it would be up here. But I like to put them on the line of the pin, because when in the cylinder, it's on a non-thrust surface, but it's up to you. I always oil the rings when I put them in. I usually have them all in the same plane, have the gaps in the same plane to do that. These rings have been in before, so they're effectively bedded in. There's not going to be a lot of wearing happening. If you're putting new rings in, you could put a bit of mineral oil on them if you don't want to put synthetic. Bed in easier or better, maybe. Being a Nickersil bore, again, it's very, very hard. It's not really going to wear at all, or it's not really going to work on the rings. Some people will use different things. Brook at V2 says in his cylinders, which are probably cast iron bore, being bevels, he likes to use WD-40 on brand new rings. That's just how he does it. And it's one of those things, again, that you choose a way to do it, and then you just, if you like it, you stick with it. If it works, it works. And you keep doing it that way. People will say, oh, you're doing it wrong. And it's like, well, that's the way I do it. It works. So realistically, do whatever you want. If you're happy with the way it works, great. This is just a mineral oil. And then I just spin the rings around. So there's a bit of oil around them, above them, behind them, whatever. It's not a great deal. Just put the rest around the piston, and then I'll set where the ends are. Where's the ends of the oil ring scrapers? I can't see them. To try and feel for them. Oh, there's one. There they are. Okay, so I'll put that one there. Second ring on the other side. Top ring back around to here. Get in. There we go. And the leftover oil, I usually just wipe in the cylinder. Again, you don't need a lot of oil in there when it goes together, but I like to have a little bit of something in there. And some oil on the skirts. Usually, the bottom of the cylinder will have a slight taper, and that's to help feed the rings in. And that's the belt side, clip is on this side. The ring compressor I use is this Blue Point one I've had for years. I have got some that are tapered rings that you put on top and then you sort of push the piston through. I really like this ring compressor, it's always worked really nicely. Just size it. It gets used on lots of things, so often it's completely the wrong size. You need to make sure that where the gap is not where the ring gaps are. Yep, it's too tight. Go back one. So we go back one and then wind it up with the little adjuster knob. Make sure when it's all done it still slides. Don't be so tight that it doesn't move. Okey-doke. Side the pin, that side. Just put it on there, push it down a bit. And it goes in like that, which was easy. Sometimes they don't go quite in quite so easy. Push it down, push it both ways a bit. Make sure it feels nice all the way. When I go to put them onto the engine, I lift it out the bottom. Careful you don't pull it all the way out, because you can pull it out and then expose the rings. These pistons, being a 659, are really quite long in the compression height, so you shouldn't have any issues with pulling them out too far. Some of the other pistons, like a 900, where the compression height is quite a bit shorter, or 800, 796, you might find that sometimes the pin is almost into the oil ring groove, and it makes it a bit harder when you're trying to do this, because the rings are a bit more likely to pop out when you get the piston far enough out to get the pin to slide in and out. 900s are annoying like that too. So just one thing to be aware of. But now that's in, that's ready to go on. The exhaust cutout, small cutout, goes to the rear on this cylinder, being the vertical. That'll do. Yeah. Just put it in a bag to keep it clean. And we're ready to go on.